Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and well, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. Today I'm going to cover particle systems in my level editor. This is the second part of this level editor series, and well, in my opinion, particle systems are the most fun part of the editor overall. They're also the newest addition to the level editor, and well, without any further ado, let's get right into it. You can go ahead up here and select add item, and you can click on particle system. You can then name the particle system whatever you like. So for example, I don't know, particle. Here we have our particle system. As you can see, it is already going. We can freeze them by removing this checkbox up here. So now it's not being updated. As you can see, particles cannot be selected with the mouse click. This is because me being lazy, I have no idea how to check for point and particle collision. It would probably be pretty wasteful to calculate collision with each particle. So the only way for you to select them is by under here, selecting particle systems and particles. Anyways, here we have a few properties. We have general, again, we have transforms, so again, rotation, scale, position, origin. We have textures. You can add a texture to your particle system if you wish. For example, I'll add testing here, and now you can see we have this texture on our particles. You can also remove the texture. Then we have shaders again, to which we'll get last because that is the most complex topic. And we have particle system. This might look overwhelming at first, but everything has its own little description, so you know what is what. Anyways, first of all, I will just move the position a bit so that it's not in the way. With this position, you can see you move pretty much all particles. This is the local position, and we also here can change the particle spawn position, which will change where they're spawning, as you can see. So let's go ahead from the top with what I'll explain what each option does. First of all, we have export particle system. You can export a particle system and then import it. We'll test this feature later. We have active particles. In this case, that is 9 or 10, depends on my frame rate. We have update time in microseconds. This is how long it takes for the whole particle system to be updated. We can also manually create a particle. So if I spam this, you can see there are more particles. And now we have all of the options. There really aren't that many. We can set our max particle count. Keep in mind that setting this to higher values will sometimes increase update time. We'll get into that in a second. For now, I'll just keep this at 1000. Why not? We can change their lifetime in seconds. So if I change this to like 5, now they'll live for quite a while, as you can see. I'll change this back to 1. We can change their type. There are 4 different types. We can have points, as you can see. We can have lines. We can have triangles, which is the default option, or quads. One just short thing that is a tip for the whole level editor, not just particles. You see this button in the top left called save. Well, I recommend you pressing it every once in a while, just in case things can crash, obviously. Especially we'll get into multi-threading in a second. So just press save every once in a while. Anyways, these first 3 types are supported by pretty much any operating system, but if you want to make apps specifically for Android, then quads option will not be available since OpenGL ES does not support quads but only triangles. So if you want to make particles quad, the best suggestion for now is you should make a texture that is a quad, and then on each triangle have a texture. It is not the best way, I know, but for now it's the only way. That might get changed in the near future. Next up, we have spawn position, which, as I showed off previously, can change where the particles spawn. This is just an offset from their position, which is basically the center of everything. We can change their start rotation. So for example, I can set this to 90, and as you can see, they're changing their rotation. It is not a surprise. We can also change their end rotation to, for example, -90. So now they're rotating much faster, as you can see, or you can change this to pretty much any number you want, and now they're spinning like crazy. Anyways, I will change this back to 0, and while we're on rotation, down here you have, this is a new AMGUI feature I never noticed, I have to say. That is pretty cool. Copy as. Yes, that is very cool. I never noticed that. I never right-clicked accidentally on this, but okay, that's a good thing to know. We can, what I wanted to say was that there's this checkbox random starting rotation, and what this does is it sets the particle starting rotation, which is going to be the rotation of their whole lifetime, randomly. So as you can see, each one has their own random rotation. What a surprise. Next up here we have spawn count when creating. So this is on each create particle, how many particles will there be. In this case this is 1, we can change this to like 10, and now it's many more particles. There's this spawn delay, which changes how frequently does it spawn particles, how frequently does it trigger the create method. For example, if we change this to 1, now every second 1 particle will spawn. If we change this to 10, every second 10 particles will spawn, as you can see. So it's just a nice feature if you want something to be timed. So I've covered this. Now next up we have constant and start force. So these are just movements of the particles. I guess the best way would be to just show how it works. So the start force can be, for example, -1. In this case, they'll all fly over to the left because it's starting as -1. We can also do the same thing on the y-axis. So, for example, -9 will shoot them upwards because minus is up in SFML. We can also change the constant force, which gets applied every frame. So if I set this to 3, you can see not much changes, but if I change this to like something like 14, now we get an interesting effect, I would say. We can of course reset this back to 0. Next up we have start and end size of each particle. This can be 0, so now they're pretty much non-existent and then they just grow larger. Or you can do the opposite and start size can be 2 and end size can be 0. I'll reset this back to 2. We can change their start and end speed. So for example, if start speed is 100, then they'll fly up very quickly and slow down. We can of course do the opposite. Next up we have, these are the latest additions to the particle system. They're minimum random speed multiplier and maximum random speed multiplier. What this does is when selecting a speed, so in this case we're focusing on start speed here, this will get, both of these will get multiplied by a random value between these two numbers. In this case this will always be 1, but we can change this to something like minimum to be 0.2 and maximum to be 1. This is not a best example. Let's change this to something like this. So you can see some of them are slower while some of them fly off much faster because of randomness. We have another variable here, which is fire angle. In this case, it's 360 degrees, so particles are being spawned in every direction. We can limit this to, for example, 45 degrees. And now it's being spawned in these 45 degrees. We can change the fire rotation to, for example, -90. And now they're being fired off -90 degrees from 0. We can also change this fading option, which is just from 1 to 0. If we lower this down, you'll see at the end they'll start to fade off and they become more and more transparent. We can change this to 0, so then they'll become transparent from the beginning. That's pretty much it from all of the variables. We can change the start and end color, so pretty much anything you want. GUI is very nice when it comes to having these pop-ups with colors. And we have a few more advanced options down here. First of all, we have draw newest on top option. Now this option is basically the way particle systems work. Sometimes draw newest on top is faster than not drawing newest on top. Sometimes it's the opposite. It really depends on what you're doing. Either one can be faster, but generally if you do not draw newest on top, it will be slightly faster. From advanced options down here, we have create particles on update. So if we remove this, then only if we select create particle, it will create particles. We have keep up with frame rate. This is a highly experimental feature that might crash the app in case of you having a very large lag spike. So we'll just save here. But what it'll try to do is, as I said, it'll try to keep up with frame rate. So if you have a lag spike, I don't know how can I simulate a lag spike, but it will create more particles in that case. So it'll just keep up. This number of active particles will always be, in this case, 10. But if we remove this, then if we have a lag spike, it might get reset back to 0, since all of the particles will die if you have a very large lag spike. The final advanced option is use new separate thread. What this does is it basically separates this particle system from the main thread being the thread that runs the whole level editor. So if I, for example, now make something very expensive to update and render, as you can see, update time has already gone up. What I'll do here is limit this to, for example, 100,000, or I'll not go that far, let's go 10,000. I will draw lines. I'll give them each a texture, so for example, testing, and we will spawn them pretty much every frame, that is 0.01, and I'll spawn, for example, something like 10 of them. This is already 500, not enough. You can see we're still on 400 microseconds here. Let's go up 100. We are on 6,000. Let's go for, I don't know, 140. Okay, that is still fairly high up. I'm also gonna set start and end rotation to something completely opposite. So we get this nice cool effect with lines. I'll also increase their lifetime time to 1.5. And now, as you can see, we got limited by active particles count, max particles count. I'll increase this to 100,000. This might kill my computer, but oh well. 100,000, let's spawn more particles, add an extra 0 here. And well, as you can see here, the update time is 24 microseconds, but as you can notice, this still runs very smoothly. We still have 60 FPS. However, if we remove this new separate thread, now our frame rate dropped to around 30 and my PC is struggling. So it might be very nice for you to use new separate thread for the particle system. And that way, you know, it won't interfere with whatever you're doing. Or either you can just not update particles. Alright, that's pretty much it when it comes to particles. You can do, as you can see, quite a variety of things. You can make various particle systems. One thing to mention that is pretty cool and has also been added recently, particle systems have events. You can, well, not in the level editor, but if you're using that level.h file, that header file I showed at the beginning, you can catch different events. There are 2 in total, so there are not that many. The first event is on death, so that is pretty much when a particle dies, it'll get triggered. And the second one is on update, so there'll be an event for each update of each particle, which can get to a very large number, especially in this example, there are a ton of particles. You'll also be able to, because of that, you'll be able to disable capturing events for the particle system to be faster. If you don't plan to capture them, there's no need to If you don't plan to handle every event, there's no need to capture every event. So it exists for that reason primarily. Anyways, that is pretty much it for particle systems. They're pretty cool, as you can see. And well, the only thing left are vertex and fragment shaders. So that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you thought about particles in the comment section down below. and until the next one.